Thanks a lot, Carl, for those kind words. Well, it is great to be in San Diego. I love it here. I love Southern California. And when I first got elected to the State Assembly in 2008, we were underwater, $46 billion on our budget, and it was a continual 20, 40, 30. It just went on and on and on for several years. But the first thing I looked at were our state's financials, trying to figure out where we were, what we could do, what we could maybe do without, because that was really the issue. We were spending way too much, and we've been on a binge for at least 10 years. So, coming in during the crash, I happened to look at our debt and noticed high-speed rail, a recently approved bond, $10 billion, and thought, maybe we really don't need that right now. So, hence my journey down the high-speed rail track. I never started out to do a project, look into a project, be about a project. But this has the potential it has such a huge impact on the entire state of California, Southern California in particular, because we are 2/3 of the population down here. This could impact all of our pocketbooks into perpetuity for years to come with debt, local financing, and everything else you can imagine. It will impact public safety, education, local transportation, and all the other things that you're trying to want for your cities, want for your counties, and you need to survive. This is that huge. It is the big dig times 10, in my opinion. Now, I have a career spanning 30 years in banking and corporate finance, and I also have a degree in economics. I use those tools through my whole adult life. And when I came to the state, I got involved in this on a project level, and it's unbelievable. It's like an octopus, and unfortunately, the minute you communicate a part of it to people, the high-speed rail comes up with another goodie, and then you can't refute it. I can refute it. So here we go. I'm going to bring you where we were and where we are now. The little engine that could. You might recall that the governor in his State of the State said that we had a little engine that could, the high-speed rail, chug, chug, chug. Well, it could bankrupt the state of California. What was promised to the voters, what 52% approved with that $9.95 billion bond, connects San Francisco to LA in 2 hours and 40 minutes nonstop by 2020. Total cost, $43 billion from San Francisco to San Diego. No local, state, federal operating subsidies. Ticket price would be $55. 95 million riders by 2030. 1/3 state funding, 1/3 Fed funding, and 1/3 private funds. California jobs, we'd have 100,000 jobs for the initial construction section in the Central Valley. And it's going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 1 million vehicles, the equivalent of 1 million vehicles. So, what have we got now? It's unpopular. 2/3 would like a revote. 2012, the state legislature approved $8 billion for the High-Speed Rail Authority. 5 years, no legislative oversight. $3.3 billion of federal funds expire in 2017. State match of 2.7 in debt for 100 miles of unelectrified track, no ridership or train set, somewhere in the middle of the Central Valley, starting in Fresno, either going north to Madera or south. Blended system, so that's a $6 billion there in the third bullet point, but we have $2 billion left. $1 billion for the bookends, San Francisco, Los Angeles, okay? But that's only if it's match funded by local funds somehow, federal grants, local funds. So, 400,000 plus Central Valley parcels are slated for eminent domain to do 29 miles from Madera to Fresno. There's no private or Fed dollars coming. CEQA and Prop 1A lawsuits. CEQA is California Environmental Quality Act. There's 4 lawsuits or 5 lawsuits on CEQA, and there's also a Prop 1A lawsuit, which is Prop 1A was the proposition that the voter approved, and this lawsuit is very, very important. There's no audit. We have fourth-level contractors reviewing contractors. We have no train specified. We have completion date has been extended and extended. The ticket price is now $100. Travel time is more than 3 hours, and this is a breaking point because over 3 hours, people would rather drive or use other methods of transportation. So this is huge when it comes to ridership or ever being a true high-speed rail. Travel time 3 hours. Foreign contractors have been solicited, so where's the American jobs? Net greenhouse gas emitter, it will be for as long as we can see. And the governor acknowledges now, of course it will have a subsidy. Every public transportation element has a subsidy. So, who's going to use high-speed rail? Now, this is what came out in Newsweek when we were talking about that. Supposedly, 39 million people will eagerly pay more than an airfare to travel slower. Okay? In 2010, Amtrak carried 29.1 million passengers for the entire year. That's about 4% of annual air travel. That's the Washington Post, and we're supposed to do 39 million riders. The irony is that California has the highest rate of car ownership in the country, if not the world. It also, despite years of neglect, has one of the best road networks anywhere, certainly leagues ahead of Japan's. On top of that, it enjoys a highly competitive network of budgeted airlines serving its main cities. That's from The Economist. Everybody was trying to figure out what we were doing. So, high-speed rail is the future, though. You've heard that. It's the future. It's how we're all going to go. Okay, so Japan, with the world's leading system, illustrates the financial devastation that high-speed rail can produce. For 25 years, Japan borrowed to build a system serving the ideal rail corridor, nestled along a single coast with a population of more than 75 million people. Ridership was artificially increased by high gasoline prices and one of the highest highway tolls in the world. That's from National Review. Building trains is an immensely costly enterprise, not just financially costly, personally costly, as people and habitats are uprooted and metal is tortured into rails, switches, and cars. If you're going to install one, you should be reasonably sure there will be people around with an interest in riding your train. After all, a train running mostly empty emits a lot of carbon, and that's the Atlantic. So these things have been going on forever, and people across the nation and the world have been commenting on high-speed rail. So the train's rolling. Why should we object? The money's out the door. Why should anybody still care? Okay, the voters were deceived. That was ruled in court. The voters were truly deceived, and hence the Prop 1A lawsuit. Project lacks sufficient private, public, or debt funding to complete even a requisite operating segment. And there will be a subsidy. The LAO and the auditor have been ignored. Legislative analyst and the state auditor have been totally ignored on this project. Jobs numbers are inflated. Existing infrastructure needs extension and repair. We could have jobs now in this state, where we need them, where we want them, and with what we will use. $500 billion, they're quoting, is deferred maintenance in the state to fix our roads, our trains, our infrastructure, our bridges. Environmental impact report is flawed and incomplete. Route changes are done at a whim, and this California Environmental Secret Reform Plan is really planned, I believe, to trump the lawsuits. That was what the CEQA reform was last year that was planned in the Senate that never made it out. But that's really what it was doing, it was exempting this big project. If you believe that the liberal Democrats in Sacramento are going to revise CEQA so that all of our builders can build out, you've got another thing coming. CEQA reform, although greatly needed, will be very project specific if it comes. And it will be pulled back immediately, I believe. California is struggling. Long-term deficits and debt. We have the second lowest credit rating. It's just recently gone up, though, incidentally. Our debt burden is the second highest. We have increasing general fund spending, 10% unemployment, escalating pension costs, highest income tax and sales tax in the nation, second highest gasoline tax, and corporate tax rates are in the West. Plans to reduce threshold for all local parcel taxes. That's what's coming in San Diego, to reduce the threshold to grant parcel taxes down to 55%. So you've got to be very, very careful at the local level on the parcel taxes. You will be begged to fund the children, public safety, who knows what, transportation. It'll be through this. Okay. Governor's touts frugality. We won't go into that. He has actually done some good things in the state. I'm not here to beat on Governor Brown, but I do believe that this is one area where he could help us out, and I still hope that he will. He kind of inherited this. This was Arnold's dream, so I'm not blaming him, because once you get money out the door, there's a lot of feeders at the trough. Very hard to pull back in government, but let's hope that he does. Okay, what could have done? What could have happened? This was a private money solution, and now what we're building, though, is a public money trough. Private investor model would pick the shortest route, public right-of-way along the I-5, and fill the gap between Bakersfield and LA. Very easy, right there in Palmdale. And but it's not a gravy train. There's not votes along that. There's very few legislators and very few congressmen there along the coast. So in order to build the train, they needed votes from everybody, because everybody has to get something before they vote for something. And that's in essence what they're doing now with you. They're coming down to your counties and your cities and whatnot. They're all the counties, Sandag and other counties uniting with Riverside, Los Angeles, Orange County. All of the transportation units are being promised that they're going to get something. So they're all signing up for memorandums of understanding to support high-speed rail, because otherwise they're not at the table. So this is a route that we could have done, that actually the French suggested to us. You could move it on. Now, this is something I won't go into, but it's available on the PowerPoint. Let's just get through this. But this shows you some of the thinking, and actually the plan is that gas prices will have to increase to make this possible. And you know, the urban planning that we're doing to live high and put everybody back into the cities is a part of this as well. So these are my resources and references. We'll go on about that. I just have a few more little clips about the state of California that I think are interesting. California's back. Let's pop the whole thing out. When I first got elected, I started from 2002 or earlier, and I went through in ducky bunny terms to show what we had, what we spent, what our deficit was, and how we were accumulating it. And you can see that by 2012, we were $35 billion in the hole. That is Jerry Brown's structural mountain of debt. I call it the structural cash flow shortage. He calls it the mountain of debt. We did reduce that to $27 billion this year. But we have increased our long-term debt, our short-term debt, and it does not include the deficit unemployment insurance trust fund of $10 billion that's coming back, going to be taxed to all employers. So this is where we are. This is how we got here. It's accumulation over years. Next slide. This one is how we stack up. Just pull these up all in whole. Okay, this is where we are on the scale of credit ratings and debt per capita and debt as a percent of state GDP. You see, the only one that is rated higher than us but has more debt per GDP is New York, and the reason is their tax burden is a lot higher. So we're heading into New York. We are a little bit right now below Illinois. Illinois just got a downgrade though, but we're still below Illinois. But you can see where we stack up in the big cities, the big states, the major states. We should not be there. We are the golden state. We have all the resources, the people, the talent. We're just wasting it. And the way we were, okay, back when Jerry Brown's dad and before was governor, you can see in 1961 our pieces of the pie, K through 12 education, higher education, other, but we had a huge slice here for transportation. Notice that. And a little bit for corrections, and then social services. Now, health and social services has just greatly increased. We have a lot going to education. Transportation and other is a very small piece of the pie, because that's actually business development and everything else in that transportation. That's 2000. That's 2000 and corrections. That's how it changed from 1960 to 2000. Next slide. Okay, and the way we are now, we have our health and human services at 29%, higher education at 11%. We have regular education, or K through 14 at, what was that? What's that, 40? 45%, corrections at 9%. We have debt service that's huge that's anywhere from 8 to 10% projected over the next few years, and we have a little bit for other. So the way we're spending our money right now, quite honestly, is health and human services and education. I don't think any of us really feel we're getting the quality we need out of education. So, next, I think that's it. I just wanted to bring you up to date on what's going on with high-speed rail. This PDF is available to you. I will be glad to send it to Tony. He could forward it out to you, but use it for reference. When anyone talks high-speed rail, remember where we were, where we are, and what it's going to do to your county. And there's a lot of rivers up in Sacramento. And my mind being so vocal for so many years and being kind of the point person is not really where I want to be. Cement shoes, are still in vogue. But I want to tell you that I think it's dependent upon all of us. If we can be the town crier, we must be. Our state needs us. Our county needs us. And quite honestly, the United States needs California back on track, and we need to derail this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Diane. Thanks for fighting for us. Thanks for being, even though you don't represent San Diego, you're still...
I do too. You need my vote up there.
Oh, we do. We need all the Republicans we can get. So thank you for being a champion of the taxpayer. Diane mentioned in her presentation something about a lawsuit, and she's fighting along with our other legislators in Sacramento to put a damper on this. But there's an outside effort as well. You're going to hear from the man who is, I don't want to say one-man army, there are more people, but this guy is like the Energizer Bunny, driving construction union bosses crazy up and down their state. And this is one man they hate more than they hate me. And so he's a good friend, he's looking out for the taxpayers, and a true champion for the taxpayer. He was here with us today to show you how you can get involved and what he's doing to put a stop to this. Ladies and gentlemen, Eric Kristen, Executive Director with CFEC. Eric?
Well, brothers and sisters, it's great to be here tonight. Thank you for giving me a few moments of your time to take time away from your families and loved ones to come here and spend time on something you think is important, which is collectively working together as a bunch of independent-minded folks for the betterment of your city, for your region, and for your state, and for your country. It's great to be here tonight. It is sometimes I am a prisoner of the knowledge that I have when it comes to high-speed rail. I cannot not know what I know about high-speed rail. What's great about you and the fellow citizens in your community is you knew it when the question was first posed to you in 2008. In 2008, when this passed 52 to 48% statewide, only 47% of San Diego County taxpayers and voters understood what this was, or voted for it. They got what this was. The Coalition for Fair Employment and Construction, the group that I represent, we take some old maxims to heart, and one of them is hit hard, hit fast, hit often. We've helped raise over $2 million to ban what are known as project labor agreements in this county 4 different times. The citizens of the San Diego County and the individual cities there within, including the city of San Diego in June of last year, which voted 58% to ban project labor agreements, get it. Now look, our party, a party I've been proud to be a member of since I was first able to vote and cast a vote for Ronald Reagan in 1984 at the age of 18, we need to expand our base. We don't need to diminish our principles, we need to expand our base. And in order to do that, we need to be able to articulate our message better at a kitchen table level. We're pretty good at up about 40,000 feet. We get the theoretical arguments. We can, probably many of you, I know my children can, who are with me here today, they can recite for you the Declaration of Independence. It is an awesome document. It's a 2,300 poem. It is poetry. It is wonderful, but oftentimes we're stuck theoretically preaching and forgetting what it is to talk to people at the kitchen table level. High-speed rail and opposition to it is a way to attract others to our cause. Because as a recent field poll shows, 60% of Californians would today vote to ban high-speed rail versus support it. 60% of California voters, I dare say, are not Republicans. So this is an opportunity to expand the party, not diminishing the values of the message, but actually expanding the message to how this impacts them at a daily in their daily lives and at the kitchen table level. As Diane so perfectly pointed out, I mean, you just watch that and you can't go home and see reality TV that gets any worse than that. This is stuff you cannot make up. As I said, I am a prisoner of this knowledge. I cannot not know that this fiscal insanity goes out and continues like this. You know, I was reminded sometimes when you speak in front of a group of people, it's good to have props. It's good to have something to distract you from the daily goings-ons and show you that there is perspective that's needed in our fight. And I got some perspective recently when my wife and I were blessed to have an opportunity to go to South Africa and just tour that beautiful country and just do something she'd wanted to do for quite some time. So we did that. For those of you that are able to remember your geography class in high school or college or grade school or what have you, you'll remember that just north of South Africa there was a former country known as Rhodesia that's now called Zimbabwe. And I came back from South Africa a multi-millionaire because what I did, purchasing it for 165 rands, was purchased a $500 million note from Zimbabwe. A $500 million note from the country of Zimbabwe, which is on sale for 165 rands in South Africa. This is what happens when your currency becomes useless and worthless. This is recent history. This is in Germany circa 1930, where you saw the pictures of the wheelbarrows purchasing bread full of money, full of Deutschmarks. This is today. This is a country that has so devalued its currency, that is taken so unseriously by the international monetary community, and that takes some doing, that you have printed $500 million notes. $500 million, that's what can happen. Now, of course, that's a little bit hyperbole, a little bit to the extreme, but it's $68 billion. And does anybody in this room believe it's really $68 billion? Can you raise your hand if you think that's what the final price tag will be? Because in 1996, when then Governor Pete Wilson first proposed this, it was $16.6 billion, which in adjusted inflation dollars would be about $23 billion. It went up as high as $100 billion. Now it's back down to $68 billion with the stroke of a pen, thanks to Governor Brown, but we all know what that means. It's going to be triple that, because when the bond traders are finished selling us our bonds and collecting the interest on them, well, let's just put it this way. If this was supposed to be a public-private joint venture, the only thing the private sector on Wall Street's doing is making money on this. They're not putting money into this, they're making money on this because of what the bond traders are doing, which is interesting considering the whole 1% argument that you hear. And so what we have here is a debacle. If you saw the recent University of Texas poll that was done that showed that over the last 2 years, 130,000 Californians have moved to the state of Texas. Did any of you see that today, the latest poll from the University of Texas? Now, you hear this a lot about out-migration, about the attractiveness level of business, doing business in Texas versus California. This is part of the reason why. This is the type of thing that makes California a laughingstock and has 130,000 productive citizens moving out of California and to Texas just over the last 2 years. Just over the last 2 years. That's quite remarkable. Now, you could say, well, it's because they have Senator Ted Cruz, and you know that's a great argument. I'd rather live in a state with Ted Cruz versus a Senator Diane Feinstein, who believes that a hunting rifle in the hands of moi is a greater threat than a thermonuclear device in the hands of that slobbering Dauphin in North Korea. That's just madness, but it's what we face here in California. That's who our representative is, and that's fine. But I'll tell you, it's not the only reason. It's not just Ted Cruz versus Diane Feinstein or Barbara Boxer. It is this madness. So we understand, and again, as Diane pointed out, I could go over all the numbers again, but you don't need to hear them because you get them. You are prisoners of this knowledge. You cannot not know this. But what do you do about it? Yes, it's an opportunity for you to share this with your neighbors. Democrats, independents, Republicans, black, white, brown, what have you. If the latest polls are right, most people get this. It's not a hard sales job. It's just taking the information and imparting the wisdom to them so that they can go, that's right, but isn't that over? Isn't that really just a done deal? Aren't they going to break ground and have Bakersfield to Fresno going here at 225,000 million miles an hour here within a couple of years for less than $68 gazillion? Isn't it really just over? No. The good news, my friends, brothers and sisters, it is not too late. Because one thing they really, really screwed up when they did this is they decided to place a project labor agreement on that. That was a great move. Because you know why? It got us involved. And if there's one thing you don't want to do as local union bosses like Lorena, I don't think she's here today, Lorena Gonzalez knows, when you get us on your bad side, we don't let up. We don't stop. We don't stop fighting. We hit hard, we hit fast, we hit often. We understand that we are going up against forces that have a lot more money, have a lot more people, union bosses that are out there pushing the nonsense that they're pushing. But the one thing that we have is we have righteousness on our sides. And when we decided to ban project labor agreements in the city of San Diego, in the county of San Diego, in the city of Oceanside, in the city of Chula Vista, when we decided to do that over the last 4 years, we did it in a very nonlinear, in a very flexible, in a very articulate, again, arguing at the kitchen table level why PLAs were bad. What that meant to the average taxpayer having a PLA, a union monopoly agreement crafted by Lorena Gonzalez, why it was better to have open competition and the free market determine who your bidder should be on a construction project instead of Lorena Gonzalez. Or instead of, speaking of slobbering dough fans, the majority on the San Diego Unified School District Board of Education determining to place a project labor agreement on $1 billion worth of work. So when they placed a PLA on this thing, we were able, that was just my excuse because I've always been opposed to it, but now we're able to get involved. This is the 37-page document because there isn't enough regulation on this project. 37-page project labor agreement that will govern the construction of this project. When they put that on it, we became involved. So what we've done is we've become a type of umbrella group for all the groups. And I mean all of the groups, the right-leaning groups, the left-leaning groups, the property rights advocates who are having their land snatched from them in Kings County because eminent domain types believe that this land could be put to better use, moving nobody from Bakersfield to Fresno than it could be actually growing products that are shipped all over the world. We represent a growing coalition of people opposed to this, and it's all coming under the rubric of what's known as a Prop 1A lawsuit. This is a lawsuit that's going to court in May 31 of this year, May 31st of this year. This issue will be in court. And as you can see right here, there is an opportunity. You know, we always come up and we argue and we give you all the bad news that's going on, but I like that idea of talking about the glass is half full. What can we do to change it? What are some positive moves that we can make to affect change in a positive way for my state? A state that seems so helpless because 120,000 people keep moving to Texas every 2 years and getting worse, but what can we do to affect change? This is something you can do. You can pull out your checkbooks tonight. You can write a check to these people knowing it is going to go to fight this boondoggle, this $68 gazillion train to nowhere. That money, and again, my family wrote a personal check to do this. It's going to these fine people. That lawsuit's going to be heard on May 31st, and we can undermine this nonsense. Now, that in and of itself won't get our state back on track. That in and of itself won't stop the insanity that comes out of the lunatic asylum up in Sacramento. No offense intended, Diane, but it's not her that's running that place up there. If it was, it'd be a much better place. We have an opportunity to take one little step in the right direction, take one little thing that's symptomatic of a much greater cancer in this state and make it go away so that we can focus on what it takes to recover our state. And in the process, yes, I'll be political here, indicate that it was groups like this and it was a Republican Party that was almost uniformly opposed to this madness when it was the Union Party, sometimes referred to as the Democrat Party, that was uniformly in favor of this project. And then have people look back when their grandkids, who otherwise would have been paying for this idiocy, are allowed to pay for other things that actually impact their lives in a positive way and say, hey, remember that project that your grandkids would still be paying for right now? Yeah, we helped stop it. That was us. We were out there preaching the word and getting it done. And it took some money, and it takes some money now. So I wanted to bring you that news. I wanted to introduce you to the fact that this boondoggle, train to nowhere, it is still continuing. Some of you just probably thought this couldn't happen. It just can't happen. But it is. They're still moving forward in it. Follow it. Look it up. Go to our website, www.californiahighspeedrailscam.com. You know, we're good at hyperbole. I love that. You got to throw in the scam part because that's what it is. It gets people's attention, forces you to focus. You view that website. It is professional. It is researched in depth. You cannot argue with the points. You will walk away with some late night reading that matches any Dean Koontz or any other type of horror book you could have imagined, and you will be angry about it and want to do something about it. So I thank you for your time tonight. Paying attention here at the local level, because when your convention center is being built, the unions think they have a project labor agreement on it. Everything that's going on down here, they're trying to slap this nonsense on it. And you know what happens at the end? When they get those workers to sign under a project labor agreement, that's hundreds of millions of dollars that those workers, whether union or non-union, that's taken from you taxpayers paying for these projects, be it high-speed rail or a convention center, that's going, you know where? It's going into the Democrat coffers to elect Democrats to office. Do not think that these things don't impact you. They do. The other side is not stupid. They get it. They write this stuff into law. They make it look like they're solving poverty, when in fact all they're doing is lining their pockets, building up their coffers, so they can take people that you support out of office. So bringing this all around now to a very political argument, that's what project labor agreements do. That's what this has on it. It needs to be defeated. Thank you. God bless you for your time.